Hey guys, Sean here, and welcome to the F1 Word. Now, as you may have heard, Oliver Bearman made his F1 debut in Jeddah driving for Ferrari in place of Carlos Sainz, who had to undergo surgery for appendicitis. The Ferrari Academy driver got the call ahead of final practice in Saudi Arabia, meaning he had just 60 minutes to get to grips with the SF24 around the incredibly demanding Jeddah Corniche circuit. Despite that limited amount of time though, Bearman went on to qualify in 11th place, missing out on Q3 by a whisker, and managed to pick up points on debut with a 7th place finish. It was an impressive first F1 outing for the young Brit, and it's got to be said he did drive extremely well, all things considered. His tyre management during the long final stint was strong, as was his pace to be fair. After all, he managed to keep Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton at bay fairly comfortably, despite the two of them being on much fresher soft compound tyres. His drive was also free of any major mistakes, and he seemed able to keep a cool head throughout the Grand Prix. And that 7th place finish, by the way, means that Bearman is the youngest driver in F1 history to score points on debut, and the 3rd youngest behind Max Verstappen and Lance Stroll to score any points at all. He is also now the 3rd youngest driver to race in F1 behind the same two drivers and ahead of Lando Norris and Jaime Alguersuari. Remember him? So, naturally, the world of F1 has hopped on the Bearman hype train, and it seems as though everyone is talking about when he will get a full-time seat in the series. Some already talking him up as Lewis Hamilton's potential replacement at Ferrari in the future. Look, Bearman's performance in Jeddah was impressive, again when you consider all the factors at play. Limited time to get settled in the car, his lack of F1 experience, the relentless and demanding nature of the circuit, as well as the pressure that comes with driving for Ferrari. And in the second fastest car that weekend, don't forget that. And whilst it may look as though he is nailed on for a seat next year, something that looked like a possibility prior to his debut anyway, maybe it's time to just take a step back for a moment and calm things down just a little bit. It was just one race after all, and we've seen drivers in the past impress in junior categories and even on debut who go on to be okay at best. Then again, you could say we have also seen drivers excel on debut and go on to win multiple world championships. My point is, though, it could go either way, so tipping him as the replacement for a 7-time world champion who hasn't even driven a single lap for Ferrari after just one, let's say, half weekend, seems a little bit premature in my opinion at least. There is the possibility the hype is exaggerated due to publications desperately trying to talk about something other than the Red Bull situation or their domination. We could maybe even consider that the lack of driver transfers between the end of 2023 and the start of 2024 means people are just desperate for something, or in this case, someone different. None of that, though, to be clear, should detract from how good Bearman was in Saudi Arabia. There's not really any denying that. With all of that said, though, it is understandable why he is being linked with a full-time drive next season, but in all fairness, all of this hype hasn't just come from what happened in Saudi Arabia. Before his F1 debut, he was already highly rated by Ferrari, and he impressed Haas last year with his FP1 outings for the team. Ayo Komatsu saying after his Mexico practice debut that he didn't think he could fault him before going on to praise his professionalism, calmness, and the fact he didn't put a foot wrong before adding, and I will quote him, very simple quote, very, very good job, very impressed. Komatsu also said, after being asked about the impression Bearman's performance in Jeddah had left on the F1 world, that, quote, he deserves a chance next year, I guess. Although did stop short at saying he's under consideration at Haas, which is pretty normal for team bosses. They're not going to show all their cards at this stage of the year. It is also worth noting that Bearman shone in both the ADAC Formula 4 and Italian F4 championships in 2021, where he won both titles with a combined 17 wins from 39 races. Went on to finish 3rd in F3 in 2022 and ended up in 6th place in the standings in his rookie F2 season, where he took, if you remember, 3 poles, 4 wins and 6 podiums over the course of the year. The point I'm making, in the roundabout way that I always like to make my points, is that his speed and potential was evident long before his first race in F1 last time out. So when you throw that performance in Jeddah on top of everything I've just mentioned, you can see why so many are now looking at where he may end up in the future and feel like his chances of landing an F1 seat are pretty high. Still though, the idea of a seat with a team at the very sharp end of the grid seems unlikely right now. More on that shortly though. What happens now though? Well, the immediate answer is simple and glaringly obvious. Bearman will return to F2, assuming, as is expected at time of recording, Carlos Sainz is fit to race in Australia, and there will be many expecting him to challenge for that F2 title, a task that somewhat ironically is now a lot tougher than it was pre-F1 debut because he sits bottom of the pile in the championship standings with no points whatsoever following a tough weekend for Prema in Bahrain and obviously him missing those F2 sprint and feature races in Jeddah. That is already a 47-point deficit to current championship leader Zayn Maloney. That's a hefty gap, but I'm talking about F2 here, and with plenty of racing still to come in 2024, and the inevitable twists and turns that come with a season in that category still on the horizon, there are plenty of opportunities for that to be turned on its head. I think it is worth saying as well that F1 teams aren't ignorant to what is going on around them when it comes to up-and-coming young drivers. And so if he did end up missing out on the title by, let's say, a few points come the end of the year, I'd like to think, in fact, I'm pretty confident the fact he missed the F2 Jeddah weekend to score 6 points in F1 instead would be taken into account. But that's something to worry about in the future if it happens. Beyond F2, Bearman will also get 6 FP1 outings with Haas this season at the Emilia-Romagna, Spanish, British, Hungarian, Mexico City and Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. So the goal for Bearman for the rest of this year, I think, is pretty clear. He needs to get out there in F2 and during those FP1 sessions and make his case for a drive in 2025. Deliver consistency, demonstrate speed and show growth and improvement. All of that will only help his stock rise further and maximise his chances of getting a promotion. After all, it's okay signing a driver based on the performance and results of just one race, but as we've seen recently in F1, that doesn't always work out. So what are his options for next season then? Straight away, we know that a full-time race seat at Ferrari is not on the cards because the Scuderia already confirmed over the winter Charles Leclerc's multi-year contract extension, as well as the signing of Lewis Hamilton on, again, a multi-year deal. That means Bearman to Ferrari is at least another couple of seasons away at the end of this year, probably even longer than that. Therefore, he will need to look elsewhere for a full-time seat in F1 if he wants to make the big step up for 2025. Sauber is a name that has been thrown around recently, and given the team's long-term close ties to Ferrari, it's not impossible that they could take him on. What makes that more unlikely, though, is the fact that Audi will take 100% control of the team and will be entering F1 fully in 2026. So those close Ferrari ties will be cut. Nico Hulkenberg, among others, has been linked with a move to Sauber ahead of the Audi switch, therefore making a move for Bearman even more unlikely. We've got to remember as well that the Sauber Academy also has its own young drivers to consider for promotion, so Audi may wish to prioritise one of those over potentially bringing in a youngster from another team. What a Hulkenberg move would mean, though, if it did actually happen, is that there would be a vacant seat at Haas, and that, perhaps unsurprisingly, is the most likely, some may even argue most probable destination for Bearman. Going back to near the start of the video where I said a seat for next year was something that looked like a possibility prior to his debut, I'm not really sure why a team would give a driver 6 FP1 sessions over the course of a single season unless they were seriously considering signing them the following year. After all, the regulations only require a team to give up 2 practice sessions for a rookie, and the team has spoken highly of Bearman in the past, as well as after his F1 debut last time out. Something like a Magnussen Bearman, or if the Audi links turn out to be nonsense, a Hulkenberg Bearman lineup could be a good balance for Haas. I doubt they're going to want to go back to an all-rookie pairing anytime soon, so putting a young driver like Bearman alongside the experience of a Magnussen or Hulkenberg could work out well for the team and indeed Bearman's development. It would also be good for him, and I say this a lot, to find his feet in F1 away from the spotlight and the pressure that comes with driving for Ferrari. And many drivers throughout F1 history have gone on to have incredibly successful careers, having started their journey cutting their teeth towards the back end of the midfielder at the back of the grid. Don't forget as well, the close ties between Ferrari and Haas don't look likely to disappear anytime soon, so there could be a deal to be done there on an engine discount, for example, if the Scuderia want to place Bearman at Haas for a couple of seasons. Think Russell to Williams as one example of how that could work well for all parties involved. There is, as always, a wildcard I want to throw in here just because why not? Although I will say before I go any further that I seriously doubt this will happen, but it's not impossible and it is something we've kind of seen happen before, or rumoured to happen before. With Ferrari closed off for the next few seasons and a move to Haas probably his most likely route to F1, Bearman may want to consider his options if he delivers for the rest of this year and remains hot property. So, what about a move to RB? Yes, the Red Bull Junior team. Sounds bonkers, but it's not that far-fetched. Stick with me on this one. Back in 2018, Lando Norris was rumoured to be under consideration by the team then named Toro Rosso if the Brit didn't land a seat at McLaren. And that's something Helmut Marko more or less confirmed last year, telling Service TV they had already reached an agreement with him until his manager realised there was an option for a contract with McLaren. So if RB decides Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda aren't the way to go for next season, they're going to need some new drivers. And so I don't think it's completely impossible that we could see something like a Lawson-Bearman lineup at RB in 2025, especially if the Brit believes he's more likely to land in a Red Bull in the future than a Ferrari in a few years' time. I'll reiterate the point that I don't really think this will happen, and quite frankly, as a Ferrari fan, I don't want it to happen, but I'm also saying it's not completely impossible, and that's why it's called a wild card pick. Stranger things have happened in F1, so you never know. Shall we wrap this up then? I think we should. Once again, if Bearman can deliver this year in F2, continue to develop well, and show Haas as the drivers are back for the future, really specifically in those FP1 sessions with the team, it is highly likely that Haas will be where he lands in 2025. So that would be my prediction, if you like, as things stand today. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's absolutely nailed on like some seem to think it is, but he is definitely on the right track and he's got bags of potential as well. It's got to be said though, if he struggles, and he could do, and doesn't go on to win the F2 title, for example, it wouldn't be the end of the world for him to do another year in that series. He is, after all, only 18 years old, and should Ferrari feel he needs another year even further away out of the media spotlight to improve and mature, they may choose to keep him in the series for one more season. The only thing is, as we've seen many times before, F1 is a fickle sport, and drivers are quickly forgotten when the next young hotshot comes along, so it is absolutely vital that Bearman continues to build on his strong debut in Jeddah and show the paddock that he absolutely should not be forgotten about and is a worthy signing for the future. That is it for this one then, but you can let me know your thoughts on Ollie Bearman's debut and where you reckon he'll be racing in 2025 in the comments section down below. Now, I will be back on Thursday with the Australian Grand Prix preview, but in the meantime, if you did enjoy this one, then please do leave a like, because it really does help the channel out, and also consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any future videos or streams. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.